Electra Forrester's heart was pounding in her chest as she stormed into the Forrester Creations showroom, the bright fluorescent lights reflecting off the glossy surfaces and casting a harsh glare on the tension that hung in the air. She could see Ivy Forrester standing near the center of the room, her usually composed expression fractured by a flicker of unease that betrayed the manipulative game she had been playing behind everyone's backs. Electra's hand shot out instinctively, grabbing the crumpled letter from Ivy's grasp, her fingers tightening around the paper as if she could physically wrest the deceit and betrayal out of her cousin's hands. "Give it to me," she screamed, her voice echoing through the showroom, sharp and demanding, a mixture of anger, hurt, and disbelief radiating from every syllable. Ivy's eyes widened, her perfectly composed mask slipping for just a fraction of a second before she tried to regain control, her voice quivering ever so slightly as she tried to reclaim the letter, her polished veneer of confidence cracking under Electra's raw intensity. "Electra, Ivy began, but Electra cut her off without a second thought, stepping closer, the letter clutched to her chest like a shield against the web of lies that had ensnared her life. "Don't talk to me again," Electra spat, her voice trembling with a mix of fury and heartbreak, each word punctuated by the betrayal she felt so deeply. Every betrayal Ivy had orchestrated, the schemes to manipulate Will, the whispered lies to turn friends against each other, the calculated moments of charm that had fooled everyone, flashed before Electra's eyes in a torrent of memories and rage. The letter in her hand felt heavier than paper. It was a symbol of everything that had been hidden, a physical manifestation of Ivy's manipulation, and Electra couldn't bear to let it go, couldn't let Ivy's treachery continue unchecked. As she held it tightly, she thought of Will, the man she loved, and how he had unknowingly been caught in the crossfire of Ivy's schemes. The way he had looked at her in recent days, torn between confusion and affection, made Electra's chest ache, and her fingers dug deeper into the edges of the paper, almost as if her determination alone could keep the truth intact until it could finally be revealed. Ivy, sensing that her control over the situation was slipping, took a cautious step forward, her polished voice attempting diplomacy, a thin veil of charm that had always worked on those around her. "Electra, you don't understand," she said, but Electra's glare cut her off, silent but piercing, telling Ivy in an instant that no words would erase the damage, no excuses would undo the manipulation. Electra's mind raced, the emotions colliding violently inside her. Anger, sadness, betrayal, and an unyielding need for justice, each one propelling her forward. She could hear the faint shuffle of footsteps behind her, a mixture of curiosity and concern from onlookers who sensed the storm brewing, but didn't yet understand its full intensity. And in that moment the showroom seemed to shrink around Electra, the noise of the bustling office fading until it was just her, Ivy, and the letter that had caused so much chaos. Her eyes, blazing with defiance, met Ivy's in a silent standoff, a battle of wills where the past and present collided with devastating emotional force. Electra's voice softened for a brief, almost imperceptible moment as she muttered to herself, not for Ivy but as a reminder to herself, that she would no longer be a pawn in Ivy's games. The words "don't talk to me again" lingered in the air like a promise, a boundary she was setting not just for Ivy, but for herself, a declaration that she would no longer allow deceit to dictate her life or her relationships. Ivy, realizing that her influence had evaporated in an instant, let out a frustrated sigh, a sound that was almost a whisper but carried the weight of her own defeat. Electra, still holding the letter tightly, took a deliberate step back, her posture a mixture of triumph and lingering hurt, knowing that while she had won this confrontation, the ripple effects of Ivy's betrayal would continue to challenge her. She thought about Will, about the conversations they would have when the truth came out, about the fragile trust that had to be rebuilt. Each thought steeled her resolve, making her grip on the letter firmer, as if holding on to the truth could also help her hold on to her sense of self. Ivy's gaze followed Electra, a mixture of disbelief and reluctant respect flickering in her eyes, recognizing that her cousin had grown stronger, more decisive, and unwilling to be manipulated any longer. Electra's mind wandered through the events that had led to this explosive moment, the late-night whispers, the carefully constructed lies, the subtle nudges that had sent her heart and mind spinning, but none of it mattered now. What mattered was that she had taken control, that she had physically and symbolically seized the letter that represented Ivy's betrayal, and that she had drawn a line in the sand. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins, a potent mixture of anger and liberation, as she finally allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible exhale, releasing some of the tension that had been building for weeks. Around her, the showroom buzzed quietly with the aftermath of the confrontation, whispers and curious glances from colleagues who sensed the drama, but couldn't fully grasp the emotional stakes. Electra's gaze softened just slightly as she glanced down at the letter, the crumpled paper now a talisman of truth in her hands, a reminder that she was no longer powerless, that she could stand up, confront lies, and demand honesty from those around her. Ivy, now silent, seemed to shrink slightly, a contrast to Electra's commanding presence, as she realized that the games she had played so masterfully were unraveling before her eyes, and that Electra's courage and moral compass had outshone her manipulation. Electra, heart still racing but mind clear, slowly turned and walked away, the letter held close, a physical and emotional shield against further deception, a declaration that from this moment forward, she would protect herself and those she loved from the manipulations that Ivy had so skillfully orchestrated. Each step she took echoed in the showroom like a drumbeat of determination, a rhythm that signified change, accountability, and the unbreakable strength of her convictions. She could almost feel Will's presence beside her, a mental image of his understanding gaze and supportive smile giving her courage, reinforcing that she was not alone in this journey of truth and justice. The confrontation had reached its climax, but the reverberations would be felt in every corner of her life, every interaction with Ivy, Will, and others who had been caught in the tangled web of deceit. Electra knew that this was only the beginning, that the letter she now clutched was not just paper, but a catalyst for revelation, healing, and perhaps even reconciliation in the future, though trust, once broken, would take time to mend. Ivy's face, etched with the first hints of regret and vulnerability, remained in Electra's mind as she left the room, a haunting reminder that even those closest to her could betray her, but also a testament to the fact that she had grown, evolved, and claimed her power. The air seemed lighter as she walked down the corridor, the weight of betrayal now transformed into clarity and resolve, a fiery determination that would guide her actions and decisions in the days to come. Electra's thoughts flickered briefly to the upcoming challenges, the conversations, the confrontations, the emotional turbulence that would inevitably follow. But she welcomed them, confident in her newfound strength and unwavering commitment to truth. Holding the letter to her chest like a sacred object, she whispered under her breath, almost as if sealing a vow with herself, that she would no longer tolerate lies, manipulation, or deceit, and that her voice, loud, clear, and unshakable, would always be heard. The showroom behind her faded, but the moment lingered, a turning point in her journey, a testament to her courage and the unbreakable bond between truth and self-respect. And though the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, Electra Forrester had taken her first decisive step into a future defined by honesty, integrity, and the unyielding strength of her own heart. Electra's footsteps echoed down the polished hallway of Forrester Creations, each tap of her heels resonating like a heartbeat of determination, a rhythmic assertion of the control she had finally wrested from Ivy's manipulative grip. The letter in her hands felt almost alive, crinkled edges and inked words searing into her memory with each glance. It was more than a piece of paper. It was the tangible proof of betrayal, the evidence of Ivy's machinations to control her life, manipulate Will, and sow discord where there should have been trust and love. Electra paused for a moment, leaning against the cold glass of the hallway divider, her reflection staring back at her with wide, determined eyes, and she whispered under her breath, almost as if to fortify herself against the storm of emotions raging inside her, "I will not let this define me. I will not be played." Her pulse thrummed in her ears, a symphony of adrenaline and righteous fury, as the memories of Ivy's schemes, subtle, cunning, and vicious, flooded her mind. Every whispered suggestion Ivy had made to turn Will's affections elsewhere, every calculated act of charm and deceit, every moment Ivy had manipulated conversations and emotions, all came rushing back, a dam of anger threatening to burst. Electra could feel the tension in her shoulders, the tightness in her jaw, as she clutched the letter closer, almost as if it could shield her from the lingering sting of betrayal. The sound of approaching footsteps made her tense immediately, her instincts razor-sharp as she anticipated confrontation, but when she turned it was not Ivy nor Will, though she knew he would soon come into the picture, it was Dylan. His presence was calm yet concerned, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions churning inside her. "Electra, are you okay?" he asked gently, his eyes scanning her face, searching for cracks in her armor. She exhaled sharply, a mixture of relief and residual frustration, and shook her head. "Dylan, I'm more than okay. I'm done being manipulated. Done being treated like a pawn in someone else's game. And that letter right there is my proof." She held it up slightly, as if the paper itself demanded recognition, and Dylan's eyes followed, wide and understanding, catching the unspoken intensity of her words. "Ivy," Electra began, her voice dropping low, simmering with controlled rage. "Thought she could control everyone around her. Thought she could decide who loves who trusts whom, but she forgot one thing, me. I'm not her, Dylan. I won't be manipulated. I won't let her hurt Will or anyone ever again." Dylan nodded, his expression serious, the weight of the situation settling over him. He knew all too well the cunning of Ivy Forrester, the subtle ways she could twist events and emotions to her favor, and he could sense Electra's internal struggle to balance fury with composure. "You're stronger than you realize," he said almost reverently, "and you've just taken the first step in reclaiming your life." Electra's lips pressed into a thin line, her mind already racing with the next steps, the delicate balancing act of confronting Ivy, protecting Will, and ensuring the truth of her cousin's schemes came to light. She thought about Will, about the confusion that had clouded his heart and mind in recent weeks, about the delicate threads of their relationship that Ivy had so cruelly tugged at, and a surge of protective love swept through her. The letter wasn't just evidence, it was a lifeline, a chance to set things right. And yet, even as she contemplated her next move, her thoughts flicked back to Ivy, who had vanished from the showroom moments before, leaving a silence filled with tension, frustration, and the faint echo of defeat. Electra knew that Ivy would be planning her next move, trying to recover, to manipulate, to find another angle, but for the first time Electra felt a powerful sense of clarity, a laser-focused resolve to stay one step ahead, to control the narrative, and to protect those she loved from further harm. Electra's hands trembled slightly as she opened the letter again, scanning the words with a mix of horror and disbelief. The careful, deliberate manipulations, the subtle nudges intended to isolate her from Will, to turn friends and family against her, all laid bare in black and white ink. Each sentence read like a dagger, a calculated act of betrayal that pierced her trust and ignited her resolve. She could feel the room around her blur, the fluorescent lights above casting harsh shadows that mirrored the stark reality of Ivy's duplicity. She had always suspected Ivy's capacity for manipulation, but seeing it documented, knowing the lengths she had gone to orchestrate chaos, made her stomach churn with both anger and disbelief. And yet, amid the shock, there was a strange sense of empowerment. Knowledge, after all, was power, and Electra now held the ultimate tool to reclaim her life and confront the lies head-on. Her thoughts flickered to Will again, imagining the conversations they would have when she revealed the letter, when the truth finally came out in all its raw, unfiltered reality. She could see his expression, the confusion, the hurt, the eventual recognition of Ivy's deceit, and a spark of determination ignited within her. She would protect him from Ivy's manipulations, ensure he understood the truth, and together they would rebuild the trust that Ivy had so recklessly tried to dismantle. A sudden noise made her spin around, her pulse quickening, and she realized it was Ivy, stealthy and deliberate in her movements, attempting to approach Electra with that familiar air of feigned innocence and controlled charm. "Electra, please," Ivy began, her voice silky, attempting to weave its usual spell of subtle guilt and persuasive allure. Electra didn't flinch, her gaze hard and unyielding as she held the letter close to her chest. "Don't. Just don't." Her voice was low, trembling with a mixture of anger and pain, and yet infused with an unshakable authority that Ivy had never encountered from her before. "You've lied. You've manipulated. You've hurt people I care about, and I will not let you continue. Not now. Not ever." Ivy's eyes narrowed slightly, her usual confidence shaken, sensing that the game she had controlled for so long was slipping through her fingers. "Electra, we can talk about this," she said, attempting negotiation, but Electra interrupted sharply, her voice rising with the fire of righteous fury. "Talk? Ivy, you don't get to talk your way out of this. You don't get to twist the truth, spin lies, and pretend everything is fine. You've crossed the line and there's no going back." She held the letter higher, almost challenging Ivy to try to reclaim it, though both women knew it would be impossible. The tension between them was palpable, the air thick with unspoken threats, accusations, and the raw power of emotions that could no longer be contained. Electra's mind raced through every possible scenario, every step that would lead to Ivy being held accountable, and every strategy to ensure the truth could no longer be hidden. She thought of Ridge, of Will, of the Forrester family, and the delicate web of trust that had been so carelessly disrupted. And yet, amid the turmoil, there was a clarity that had never existed before, a sense of moral purpose that guided her actions and fortified her resolve. She was no longer a passive participant in Ivy's schemes. She was the architect of the confrontation, the guardian of truth, and the champion of justice. Her heartbeat slowed slightly as she considered the next steps. How to approach Will, how to navigate the aftermath with the rest of the family, and how to ensure that Ivy's manipulations could no longer dictate the lives of those she cared about. Ivy, sensing that her attempts at charm and persuasion had failed, let out a frustrated sigh, a sound that was equal parts anger and helplessness. "Electra, you don't understand the consequences of what you're doing," she warned, her tone edged with a mix of threat and desperation. Electra's lips curved into a tight, controlled smile, one that was cold, confident, and resolute. "I understand perfectly, Ivy. I understand that you've underestimated me. I understand that your games have consequences. And most importantly, I understand that I am not afraid of you anymore." Each word resonated with the weight of finality, a declaration that the power dynamic had shifted irrevocably. Electra could feel Ivy's defiance faltering, a flicker of doubt crossing her face as the realization settled in. Electra had taken control, and there was no reclaiming the letter, no rewriting the truth, no spinning the narrative to her favor. Dylan, watching silently from a short distance, felt a swell of pride and admiration for Electra. He had seen her struggle, seen the weight of manipulation and deceit bear down on her, and now he witnessed the transformation, the moment when fear and uncertainty were replaced with clarity, courage, and unyielding strength. He stepped closer cautiously, careful not to interfere but wanting to offer support, and Electra glanced at him, her eyes meeting his in a fleeting moment of shared understanding. The unspoken communication was clear. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed with truth, conviction, and the unshakable knowledge that she was no longer alone in confronting the consequences of Ivy's schemes. Electra turned back to Ivy, the letter still clutched tightly in her hands, and for a brief silent moment, the two women stared at each other, one radiating raw, empowered determination, the other slowly crumbling under the weight of exposure and failure. Electra's voice, steady now, carried both authority and finality. "This is over, Ivy. I've seen the truth. I've held it in my hands. And I will make sure everyone else sees it too. From now on, you answer for your actions. No more manipulation. No more lies. No more playing with people's hearts. It ends today." Ivy's lips pressed into a thin, tight line, the fight draining from her posture as she realized the truth of Electra's words. The power she had wielded so effortlessly was gone, replaced by the stark reality that Electra was no longer afraid, no longer pliable, and no longer under her control. Electra felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration, the emotional storm finally giving way to a profound sense of purpose. She had faced betrayal, confronted manipulation, and seized the truth, and though the path ahead would be challenging, she knew that she was stronger, braver, and more determined than ever before. Holding the letter like a shield and a promise, she took a deep breath, her mind already planning the next steps to ensure justice, accountability, and the restoration of trust for herself, Will, and the Forrester family.